It's the last day of the month, the last Tuesday of the week, but certainly not the last day for us to go on chasing our dreams. That's an everyday charge, and we'll help you to do just that on your morning brief, the perfect morning starter right here on Channels Television. Welcome. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Jeffrey. It was on the 31st day in the month of March, signaling the end of many things, including the first quarter of 2026. So it's time to review quarterly what you've been up to. Have you made money? Have you lost money? Have you filed your taxes? Haven't you filed your taxes? What is going? All of that, you know, and several other things as far as this world, should I say, is concerned. So there's a lot going on. For me, I look out for a lot of things, but I think we have Cardi standing by somewhere. Not yet.
Well, Cardi will be joining us subsequently, but we start again yet on a sad note today as the people of Anguan Rukuba in Jos North local government area are yet to recover from the attacks that left about 40 persons now dead. And we also saw that the governor visited the residents yesterday in an armored vehicle where he tried to appeal to them not to take laws into their hands. He also assured them that those who have been killed will not be buried just anyhow, but that they will be given a befitting burial. And of course, he also, assured them that security will be provided henceforth. How that assurance will come through, how it will play out, how it will lead to an enduring end to the constant attacks on the people on the plateau is what is left to be understood and, accepted now, especially for those who have to sleep with one eye closed every night in different parts of Plateau State. I recall just 11 months ago, the governor rather, made similar appeal to the people of Bassa local government area, where about 40 persons also were killed. And prior to that time, the previous month, there was an attack in Bokos local government area also, where scores of people were killed. So it seems like a continuous sad tale for the people on the plateau. Barkin Ladi is also another local government area where there are constant attacks, historically and periodically. Just a few months ago, about 12 persons were buried following attacks in that particular local government area. And, yesterday it was quite unsettling to see, even though it must have been appreciated that the governor came through to visit them and appeal to them not to take laws into their hands and to calm down. We saw that the people were quite dissatisfied with the curfew that was imposed and there were protests. We saw, Jeffrey, yesterday, heavy protection for the governor, even while he came down following the insistence of the people that he alights from that armored tank to come and address them. We saw that the governor was heavily protected by security operatives. He was surrounded. But the irony is that the people on the plateau did not have similar protection. Jeffrey.
It's a sad, Bukola, I've told you and Coyote that I'm becoming I don't know whether I'm becoming tired, exhausted of repeating the same thing over and over. And this is not going to be the last time, sadly, because there is no political will. I would insist there's no political. Where do I even start from to address this challenge? Let's begin from the governor's appearance. I have watched the governor, Caleb Motwang. Sometimes it feels like crying. It looks helpless. It looks inundated. It looks like he doesn't know what to do. It looks like he's always seeking for help and all of that. Look, that is not what we need. We need a leader that would take charge. Am I saying he's not doing anything? I'm sure he's making some effort. But when he comes out in public, it's either one reassurance or appeal or this or the other. The people don't need any of those things. They just need to be protected. Because what can you really do to protect the people is to use the instrument of state that's been given to you. You may not have control, but you have command. If the military or the police or the security agencies in the state are sabotaging your effort to protect your people, cry out. Say something, do something. Yesterday, as you said, Bukola, he came with an armored vehicle. I understand that the people insisted that comes out from that armored vehicle to address them on the ground. I don't know whether that's what played out, but eventually left addressing them from the armored vehicle down to the ground. So you can see the level of protection he's giving to himself. And that speaks to the lack of relatability of leadership. Some people say, oh, do you want the governor killed? Absolutely not. But his people are being killed. Who is going to protect them? So you need to show that you are in for the... Look, this job is not just about the perks of the office. The perks of the office is what you came with, armored vehicle and all of that. You also need to show that you can risk your life if that's what it takes for your own people. That's what responsible leadership involves, which is why I was very critical of President Bola Tinubu a long time ago until finally he went to Benue State. Because at some point, it sounded, I don't know whether it has a bit of phobia for ground zero for some things. No matter what happened anywhere in Nigeria, the president never showed up, never showed up. The only place eventually finally showed up was in Benue State, and he didn't even make it to Yelwata. And I was wondering, what kind of leadership do we have in our country? I'm not saying everywhere an incident happens, the president must be there, or the governor must be there, or at least the governor has to be there, at least. Maybe the president, not everywhere. But there's a certain scale of killings and massacre that happens that we need our commander-in-chief to show up. That is very reassuring at all times. But perhaps it's the kind of leadership we're dealing with. So coming back to Plateau State, I do not know what has to be said. I was listening to a video of a young man saying that when the attackers came, they wanted to go after them when they were retreating. Then the military came, or the security forces came, stopping them from, retaliating, or whatever word you want to use, on those guys who were racing. They are alleging that the security agencies actually shielded them from taking their pounds of, shielded the attackers, the residents from taking their pounds of flesh on the attackers, who were able to leave. They said, according to the gentleman, when they left, when the attackers left, that is when the military also left. So this is my conclusion with the greatest sense of respect. I have mentioned this, and I pray the government is listening. There is mixed messaging in this government. There is discordant tone in this government on how to deal with gunmen and terrorists. I see it clearly when part of the security forces or security hierarchy of the security agencies will be saying, let's look at these people as prodigal sons, or let's look at these people from a conciliatory point of view. I don't understand what that even means in English. These are killers. What are you discussing with them? We saw an ideological terrorist sentenced to 20 years imprisonment. Do you know what an ideological terrorist is? He cannot repent. Literally, it takes God himself to change him. So, as a state policy, what are we really looking at? Are we looking at pampering these guys until they change, or we're looking at using the force of is it the might of state or the force of state to deal with them? Absolutely. The president in 2025, in December, was very vocal that he's not going to take this nonsense again. Enough is enough. His Minister of Information came and said, in case you were not clear on what the Commander-in-Chief has said, if you bear guns and you're not a member of the armed forces, you are an enemy of state. We will go after you. What has happened to all of that talk? It just talk. We're just talking. People are dying. We're just here speaking English. It's very sad. It's very unfortunate. It's very heartbreaking to see these things happen. But I think the government should be responsible enough. I know they are making effort, but it's not good enough.
And speaking of responsibility, Jeffrey, it's not enough, and it's totally unacceptable to have the governor of Plateau State come out time and again just to apologize and appeal to the residents of Plateau that everything will be okay, when absolutely nothing is okay. Again, I recall 11 months ago, when he visited Basa local government area, he said specifically that security has been provided, but like in all human cases, sometimes things happen. I'm not quoting him copiously now, but those were the words of the governor. Now, in this case now, and subsequent cases after that, in Riom local government area, in Barikin Ladi local government area, what happened to security? What happened to protection for vulnerable communities? What happened after those meetings by the former Inspector General of Police to the Plateau State Government House, during which there were interactions and, needs assessments were carried out, and it was, determined that this was what communities needed for their protection. What happened? What happened to the 1 billion naira donated by the wife of the president to victims of Plateau attack last year, July? After that, subsequently, we have seen youths of Biram Association come out to say that their people are suffering, that their people are languishing in poverty. There are internally displaced persons camp where people are living in overcrowded rooms. What happened to those funds? We're asking the Plateau State government now to be accountable, to stop giving the people of Plateau State mere rhetorics as far as security and their protection is concerned. And this goes also to the management of our security architecture, whatever that means. In the last couple of years, that's what we'll be hearing throughout states of the Federation. Jeffrey, I was watching a video just 2 days ago on social media showing a community in Kwara State, I believe, where the latest attack occurred, and in a church, a pastor and his family were kidnapped. Something to that effect. That community is now deserted. I believe in Omwaro, a community where there are structures, where life is supposed to be thriving, commerce is supposed to be thriving. The entire community was deserted. We call on the Minister of Defense, to do something about the security situation. We've seen the Minister of Defense actively participating in politics. We hope that there's no distraction as far as the primary responsibility of his ministry is concerned, which is the management of security, and not just in the Northeast, not just in the Northwest, but every part of the country where there is a huge security challenge. We call on the Minister of Defense to live up to his responsibility and ensure that indeed all Nigerians are safe, that indeed, the welfare of those who are on the front lines, who are battling security, is well taken care of. They are motivated. We ask again for investigations. We're tired of hearing stories where troops are supposedly complicit in aiding and abetting attackers who go after, innocent people in their communities and maim them, slaughter them in broad daylight. And Jeffrey, that video of that mother, holding on to her dead son is so heartbreaking. It was all over social media yesterday. One of the youths that was killed by those marauders, we saw the mother clutching onto her son and wailing in agony. And we're here talking about politics. We're here, analyzing national conventions. Tomorrow we'll move on, but the people who are being attacked day and night, will never recover from their harrowing experience.
It's very heartbreaking. In this government, there are 3 persons I was worried about. And I'm hoping that General Christopher Musa is not already caught up in what I was afraid of. We saw what he was and what he did at CDS. And now he's joined the On Your Mandate We Shall Stand group. And I said, I hope politics doesn't swallow him. I know he's not the commander-in-chief, but his vast experience, and the reason I like him as a person is because I feel he's one of those military generals who is not interested in conciliatory conversation. I feel that if not for state policy, for conciliatory, repentant bandit, that I don't understand what that means in English, he would use the might of state. So whether he's been swallowed up by the politics now, he's now a minister, I do not know. But it's very sad to see that we watch our people die and we just normalize death. Kyle was in Ukraine, in Kiev, and when he came back, he said, even in Kiev, where there's war between Ukraine and Russia, they don't have the kind of wartime numbers, death, like we have right here in Nigeria. And we've just normalized. Because as we're just talking, I just saw this story on our side about a deadly attack by armed men, bandits, disrupting a wedding ceremony in Kaher village, located in Kagako local government area, Kaduna. Leaving 13 people dead. This was, I think, yesterday, while we're dealing with Plateau and several others abducted. So I'm asking myself, by what scorecard would President Bola Tinubu use to pitch his re-election as far as security is concerned in Nigeria? Here is people, I think it was our friend Sheilo who was saying that, well, that security is better now than it was 10 years ago, and I just smile. What exactly is going on with us as a people? So, Mr. President, I don't know what it is. I can tell for a fact there are certain things this president has done that I agree with. But when it comes to issues around security, you did not create the problem. So that is very clear. But I don't think you've managed it as you should manage it. People are still dying. Asymmetric warfare is still going on. The value of human life has not increased by an inch since you became president. In fact, you refused to show up at ground zeros until people screamed and you now showed up in Benue. So I believe that you may have to send a better signal to your retinue of lieutenants. And retinue of lieutenants, I mean those in the military and everyone in the civilian line of chain, that ecosystem, to begin to use the might of state to see how we can secure our people and help them to live better lives. Section 14 of the Constitution is my best section. In fact, that section 14, 15, 16, all of that has to do with state policy and objective, is one of my best sections of the Constitution. The security of lives and property. If you fail in that, even if we have 4 square meals, if there's anything like that, and we can't sleep well, you have failed, Mr. President. So please, we may be in the city center, have all these police around us in the city center, but our people in the hinterland, the rural areas, they're also citizens of our country. You need to do something to protect them. Thank you for your efforts so far, but you're not doing enough. People are dying. Your military, we understand, some are complicit, aiding the killing of people, either not showing up when they should show up, or stopping people from retaliating when attackers come against them, or seizing guns from people who want to protect themselves and leaving the attackers to carry out this heinous crime. What exactly are we doing as a country? So please, this is an appeal to you, Mr. President. You swore to protect our people. City centers are not the only citizens of our country. Rural people are also citizens of our country. The least we can do for them, if we can put food on their table, is to allow them go get food for themselves safely and return home safely to be with their families. I don't think that's too much to ask, Mr. President. So please act. That's your job. That's what you swore to do. So do your job. Thank you.
And speaking of Mr. President, I believe yesterday was his birthday.
Sunday was his
birthday.
Sunday
was his birthday.
His
he clocked
74th birthday.
74 on Sunday, and there were quite a number of wishes. From here, we're also wishing Mr. President happy birthday.
In arrears.
With a note about, you know, the people in Plateau State, the people in Kwara, the people in Borno, the people in Oyo, those who have lost their lives, those who are still in captivity, Mr. President. That's our attachment note as we wish you a happy birthday, that we hope those who are still in captivity from Borno, Kaduna, Sokoto, Kwara, Kogi, that those people will be found and reunited with their families. So that's an attaching note as we wish Mr. President a happy birthday. But there's just one more place that we will touch. One story.
I wish him a happy birthday.
Yes, indeed.
74 is not beans. So, Mr. President, happy birthday to you. Go ahead, Bukola.
Yes, indeed. One more story to touch before we begin our segments proper this morning. Justice Joyce Abdul Malik of the Federal High Court, Abuja, has restrained the Kabiru Turaki-led National Working Committee from gaining access into the National Secretariat of the PDP in Abuja. Justice Abdul Malik also ordered security agencies, including the Nigeria Police Force, the DSS, among others, to give adequate protection to the PDP led by Abdurrahman Mohammed while accessing the Secretariat. The judge held that the purported national convention held by the Turaki-led group on November 15 and 16, 2025 in Ibadan, and the election of the party officials against the valid court orders was a nullity. And she said the convention violated Section 287 of the Nigerian Constitution as amended, as well as the PDP's constitution. And so, as has been said by the opposing side, the other group, the governor of Oyo State, to be precise, the Nyesom Wike-led PDP has the backing of the judiciary, has the backing of INEC, and apparently now has the backing of security institutions by this court order. But what I do not understand is, prior to the convention that held over the weekend, the PDP convention led by the Nyesom Wike-led group, the court had upheld the suspension of the Samuel Anyanwu working committee, I believe, of the group. And so it appears as if there are so many discordant tunes coming in from the courts. And, this comes on the heels of the convention where Mr. Nyesom Wike, Minister of the FCT, has now been, by consensus, has now been recognized, I can't say elected, because there was no contention, no other contender, as the national leader of the PDP. Well, Jeffrey.
PDP's case is like Nigeria. If they explain it to you, you understand. They didn't explain it well. I have followed the politics of that party and the APC and all of that. And so, just to summarize it, there has been they are prolific litigators as far as this PDP matter is concerned. So, there were all kinds of orders. There were all kinds of conflict in interpretation of but the two judgments that actually nailed the Turaki group was Sule Lamido had actually gone to court to say he wasn't allowed to exercise his human right to be elected. So to that extent, the court said, look, you cannot, if he chose not to go through consensus, he has a right to be part of on the ballot. And to that extent, he got the judgment. It was actually a judgment. And then there is a part of I think the Turners, the three chairmen of different state chapters of the party, had gone to court to say that if they are doing the national convention, some states don't have executives. So it's only natural that you do your ward, you do your local government, do your state, zonal. That's a procedure. So to that extent, the court also stood by them. And then there's a part that was also gained by the Turaki group. But where we are right now is that the appeal court has ruled and has nullified that convention. And the Wike group is insisting that they are in charge because they set up who set up that caretaker committee, on what premise that caretaker committee, who are the neck that set up that caretaker committee. It's another kettle of fish that is a subject of control. What authority did they have to set up that committee? However, whatever they did, the court may have agreed with that, which is why the Turaki group is going to the Supreme Court to seek interpretation. One would have thought that since it's a subject under adjudication, everybody would have held off till the Supreme Court. Well, they have done the convention. INEC has actually recognized them. INEC was present in their own convention, so it means INEC says these are the people we're relating with, so it's natural that they go and occupy that. So there's going to be this back and forth. But I can't wait. I feel that the Supreme Court should give expeditious hearing to this case, because of the fate of the party itself, so that we're clear and we know that, finally, Turaki group won and they can now do whatever they want with the party. Or we can say the Nyesom Wike group has won. They can now do whatever, because there are two things the Nyesom Wike group will do, at least for the presidential election. It's either they will get a very weak candidate who is just going to stay there, maybe endorse the president, or just participate for the participation stage.
Shamelessly endorse the president.
No, they were it's their right to do whatever they want to. It's their political party. It's none of my business. So they can choose to endorse the president with their group, which is one of the possibilities, or they could, out of maybe shame, say, let's not endorse, let's just contend, let's just participate, because they are not contending as far as this election is concerned. So it's to divide votes and all of that. So I don't know how I'm going to take anyone seriously who says, I am a leader. I love the man, Nyesom Wike, for one thing. If he says he's going to do something, he will do it. So I love him for that. But I don't agree with some of his politics, because I don't understand how you say, I will, now they have called him national leader. I don't understand what that means. But it's their people. So I don't understand where you as a national leader, in quote now, will be supporting the re-election of the APC, and you want people to vote for the PDP, for the presidential. Just choose a struggle.
Well, according to reports, Jeffrey, in fairness to Mr. Nyesom Wike, he actually met with the Bauchi State Governor prior to the convention over the weekend, to further make efforts to reconcile with the Turaki-led NWC, according to reports. But those efforts didn't, they proved abortive. They didn't go anywhere. And so the convention had to hold because from what we have seen, he has held on tightly to the PDP structure, at least from his own end.
Let me give you why, without speaking for any of them. So just let me plainly put it to you, why when I tell you things, you say, oh, why did you know? Because I can tell politicians like to grandstand, even when they are wrong or right.
So you believe those efforts were mere grandstanding?
No, so the point was, before who you're supporting, the Nyesom Wike group has given a condition, and is within their rights. They said nothing will change our national convention. Don't touch this caretaker committee. And their group went on to do state congresses across board. That is literally you in charge of the party. So what is Turaki coming to discuss with you? Do you understand?
And Turaki,
so I don't know.
Turaki SAN had talked about fifth columnists as well, who were working against the reconciliation moves that would be taken care of. Who the fifth columnists are is what we do not know. But on both sides of the divide, there were efforts to reconcile both factions of the party.
Divides are wrong on certain levels.
Yeah, on a number of levels.
Yes, Turaki group, for instance, you cannot go and do a national convention without, if it's as alleged, you didn't do ward, you didn't do local government, you didn't state, you didn't do zonal. That is a sequence of how these things are done. So it's expected that the court would naturally stand against in favor of anyone who took you to court. On the other hand, the Nyesom Wike group, you want to reconcile. You said, don't touch the National Convention, don't touch the caretaker committee, and then you went on and did all of the congresses. You have literally taken over the party. So because this thing is interest, what do you want the other guys to take? What are you going to negotiate?
Absolutely nothing.
And this was just an endorsement. So.
And they say that you do not touch a template. Don't fix it if it's not broken. So that National Working Committee that was re-elected is a team that is working, that has been delivering on the agenda of Mr. Nyesom Wike. So let's just retain that winning team. That will continue to further the agenda of Nyesom Wike. The Turaki group
sees them as the APC arm of the PDP.
Well,
but guys,
are they saying anything new?
We'll take a break. We're just trying to explore from security to politics to what's playing out. You make sense of the situation. I hope you've already made up your mind who you're going to vote for, because I don't believe Nigerians make up their mind just close to the elections. People have already made up their mind. So all you can do is just last-minute appeals in case somebody will change their mind. Well, if you haven't made up your mind, we'll help you with some of the stories making headlines after this break to see where you will stay. Okay, we'll be right back. Welcome back. It's still the morning brief right here on Channels Television. It's the Tuesday edition of it, but it comes with a lot of mixed feelings, which we've tried to weigh in on this morning. We're not quite done with that yet. The papers are also telling us quite a lot more insights as far as events of the last 24 hours are concerned. And joining us now is journalist, public affairs analyst, and MD Megastar Magazine, Mr. Adeni Ifeta, is right here in our Lagos studio. Mr. Adeni, it's good to see you. Same here. Good morning, Nigeria. Yeah. And it appears a dark Tuesday morning in Nigeria, especially on the Plateau. And the papers, tell us quite a lot this morning. Let's begin with the Vanguard. U.S. lawmaker warns over Plateau Kaduna killings. We see some riders here. Let's see if we can take a few of them. Says continued killing of Christians could strain U.S.-Nigeria relations. Terrorists kill 40 in Plateau Kaduna attacks. Governor declares 48-hour curfew in Plateau. Unijos reschedules exams. MBF warns citizens armed. Accuses DSS director of intimidation. And northern governors back Tinubu's security strategy for region.
quite a lot, Mr. Adini. You can begin to pick them one after the other.
Yeah, first and foremost, my heart goes to the family and the state government. And secondly, you know, it's just, if my memory serves me right, it's mostly maybe this thing normally happen every Sunday. Maybe they are deliberate by these terrorists, let's just attack on holiday, etc., etc. But regardless of that, I think government, they are not doing enough. Both state and federal government, we've been talking about state police. Most of these crimes are localized. Anybody that have not been in this environment before cannot just, come in and do whatever he wants to do. And I think that there should be multi-level security from local government or even world, because these are the things they put in place when it comes to election. Like the U.S. Senator have said that it might strain our relationship. A tree does not make a forest. So in as much as we are independent, a sovereign nation, we have these, we share idea, trade, so many things we do, bilateral trade, etc. So I think the federal government should not pay lip service to this. If you remember, and my memory serves me correctly, several years we've been talking about state police. I think the IG was trying to do something, but there should be a timeline. And Mr. President, too, is not out of place if you can go, pay them a condolence visit just to show that we share in your pains. And lastly, for me, supporting Mr. President's security strategy, I've not seen strategies in place, because this thing kept, coming back as if we never do anything about them. And you can't continue to do the same thing and expect different results. I think they should change the way they do their stuff.
Interesting. I think that's what everyone is appealing. Mr. Let's go to what did you take? Let me take the Guardian newspapers. The Guardian newspaper, because a lot of other papers will come back to it. Or let's just take the Guardian, then we'll come back to other papers. Ministers develop cold feet over state politics, delayed endorsement. So we'll switch gears now from security to politics. So you can see, we understand Ambassador Tuga has officially resigned. He's going to contest as governor of Bauchi. We see other persons on that front page. Why do you think they're developing cold feet? They're not sure of their jobs.
Normally based on, I think, INEC guideline, they have till is it midnight of tonight.
No, President actually told them
that if you want to contest, if you want to seek an ambition, which is the right thing for you to do, and it's not just a time somebody will sit at the villa and say this is the next governor, just kind of a selected process, So developing cold feet, you can't eat your cake and have it. If you want to go for it, go straight up. So let us know, because you can't have a divided attention. As Nigeria have a lot of things going on for them that need to be taken care of, and we need your full attention. You can't be seeking an ambition and you still want to retain your seat. So if you want to have your cake, have it. If you want to, you can't have both ways. So just let us know, and a stitches in time saves nine.
So are we going to see more resignations before the end of tonight?
Yes.
Or we'll see...
I said I was in a forum yesterday, and I said, don't be surprised. There might be some resignation even before the 31st of March. Before
I think what has made some of them to develop cold feet again, perhaps, is this movement of PDP governors into APC. So some of them, I want to believe, had this ambition to become governors of their state. And the politicians plan really ahead. When it comes to elections, they are very good. They are terrible at leadership, some of them. Some are good at leadership. But when it comes to election, don't play Nigerian politicians. They are very good at it. So perhaps this movement of governors and influx and this consensus issue is also, they're not sure what to do with themselves and all that. So
Jeffrey, in addition to that, perhaps what has made it easy for the Minister of Foreign Affairs to drop his resignation is the fact that perhaps the coast is clear for him in Bauchi, where the governor is not seeking a second term.
He's
not seeking a second term.
Yes, he's also, just like maybe also in your state too, the Governor Makinde is not as if he's seeking a second time, but regardless...
Bielsa is not seeking a second time.
Okay,
that one is off cycle. That one is off cycle.
Off cycle.
So for that, you feel that, okay, it's not as if there's a governor coming from one party to seek, the same ticket that he's looking for and all of that. So that thing, I think that, just like you said, they plan And when it comes to elections, you look at the pros and cons and see the one that will favor them.
All right, let's touch on other papers this morning. We have quite a number of stories on the front page of the New Telegraph. We've weighed in on the challenge of security following our trail of the Vanguard. But let's look at the bottom of the big picture on the front page of New Telegraph. And you see there one of the biggest political stories captured. Kwankwaso, we recorded membership surge since Sunday, says ADC. You find details on pages 6 and 27 of New Telegraph. And this is as ex-governor Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso officially joins the ADC. Defection, not a surprise, NNPP scribe. I'd like to believe that's a follow-up on our interview yesterday with Mr. Ladipo Johnson, or maybe another NNPP scribe is speaking. But you'll find out on pages 6 and 27, mark APC threat to multi-party democracy in Nigeria. And so following Alhaji Kwankwaso's defection to the ADC, there were perhaps rumors or conjectures that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar would drop his ambition following his entry, but that has been debunked by his aide. But, you know, this adds a new dimension to the permutations as to how the presidential candidate of the ADC would emerge. What are the contentions that you see would emerge from the ADC following this entry?
You know, for them to have a credible and acceptable candidate or flag bearer, as it were, I think one of the issues that will play out is how they manage their ego. We have a lot of political gladiator, if I may use the word, that wants to vie. We have Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, we have Peter Obi, we have Kwankwaso, and even Rotimi Amechi also, you know, nurturing one or two ambitions. So just how they will manage it now, you know, because sometimes leadership is not all about the winner takes all. Sometimes you need to sacrifice. If you remember, my memory serves me right, leading to 2015 election, even before then, you will see what Ashiwaju did while it was the ACN then with the NPP and all of that merging together. He never sought any political post that, oh, I want to be the president. So it's going to be a lot of sacrifice if they want to wrestle power and if they have something to offer Nigeria better than the current administration. But if it's all about, I want to be the president, I can never be vice president to anybody, it's the same thing, they will come back to square one, because it's not about joining the party or decamping to the party now. It's how they will manage those big wigs to say, can we just support this candidate? And Kwankwaso coming, yes, he has his own block vote, and one state does not make the whole of 36 states of Nigeria and Kwakwasiya movement. They are all a plus for them, but it's just for them to now say, we know that what this current administration is giving us is very bad, it's not good, we can do better, but in the interest of Nigerians, I want to sacrifice my own ambition. Let's put Mr. A and Mr. B together, and we support them with whatever structure that we have. But it's all about personal ambitions and all of that. They are not going to make any impact come 2027
But of all the political gladiators, which for you is the most credible?
For me, I want a case of Obi and Kwankwaso.
Okay. Jeffrey?
Well, totally out of time. No, my own is whoever wants to go is their business. My own is to be here and be analyzing in the interest of the Nigerian people. To be honest, I really don't care who what. I care about what is playing out in the Plateau. I care about the pump up price, I feel. So whoever is coming wants to take the job of Bola Tinubu, the president, I want to see how you will do it differently and how you do it better. It's not just taking over. Because President Tinubu promised something. Some of those promises are not fulfilled. Some is making effort. So we want to see better, not just recycling people for the purpose of recycling them. But almost, thank you.
Yes,
Bukola.
Indeed. That's the challenge and the task ahead for whoever it is that is positioning. But we must anchor at this point. And thank you so much, Mr. Adeni Ifetayo, MD Megastar Magazine and journalist who has joined us on this one. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
But there are more insights to come as far as the biggest stories are concerned. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this time out.
Welcome back. Let's begin with national security. The killings in Plateau. The people are angry. They are mourning. The governor went to appeal. They don't want to hear it. What they want is safety. They want their lives secured. Whilst we're dealing with that, another set of attack happened in Kaduna. Kaduna has enjoyed some level of peace under the administration of Ubasani compared to the previous administration. But at some point, they dropped the ball yet again. And we've seen this incident happen where we understand 13 guests at the wedding are now dead and several other persons abducted. That is the story of Nigeria. Unfortunately, we don't want to be telling these stories, but this is what we're dealing with. Let's bring in our guest. Kingsley Uzoma is a security consultant joining us from Abuja studios. Also, Commodore Promise Dapa, former naval officer, joining us virtually. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Commodore, let me start with you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Commodore, let me start with you. I am personally exhausted, tired, inundated with all of this. We've said everything we can say. We keep repeating ourselves. So let me ask you from a point of experience, from a naval officer, a member of the armed forces, what are we not doing right? Why is life so easy to be cut short in our country? What is going on? Commodore, that's for you. Oh dear, okay. While we're trying to get Commodore, Ms. Ozoma, if you got a question, please respond. Ms. Ozoma, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, thank you. In my own view, we are not doing security-wise, we are not getting a lot right. Okay, yesterday Plateau, today Plateau, tomorrow Plateau. And the question is, for years, we've not taken time as a nation to ask, why Plateau? Why Kaduna? Why the other states? Over time, we hear of mere rhetorics from security agencies that the only thing we seem to be getting right is next election, who becomes the governor, the next governor, the senator. That strategy, they seem to get it right on their ambition. It doesn't matter if it's costing security of, if it's costing tolls of debt and what have you. I think the issues of Plateau is much more than enough for us to by now to have settled it. If a certain section of tribes, like maybe oftentimes, because I'm familiar with that environment, and accusing finger is pointed at certain sections, say Fulani jihadists and what have you, not doing name calling. Issue of a modus vivendi of where these people can live, an agreement to move them, settle them, becomes very much important, okay? Because the indigenous, the locals are not ready to give way, to leave their ancestral land. So why should those they believe as invaders should be able to maybe chase them out of their land, consume and things? So for the people who consider themselves an indigenous, is one thing for the governor to come today to console them, is another. And maybe analysts and observers had believed that the governor moving from his party, the opposition party, to now the ruling party would go a long way in dousing the tension and giving him more upper hand, okay, in dealing with issues of security, so he can have direct, unrestricted access to the top security echelon and make sure there is apt emergency response and prevention mechanism. But seeing this event of yesterday and the one in the past, that raises an eyebrow. Is really being part of the national politics or the government in power? Does that really settle issues of insecurity? Take it back to Kaduna, where we have, yes, the former chief of defense staff is now the minister of defense and what have you. With his knowledge, sagacity in the realm of security and defense, we also expect that things should be at this level. But again, if you hear from them, the information is they've gone a long way, that a lot of milestone has been covered in dousing tension and managing security. But just a few days ago, during the convention of the APC, I took my time to observe security architecture. I discovered that the more concentration was where event, then critical infrastructure and major critical spaces seem to be more vulnerable. So security agencies need to go beyond mere eye service before these political actors to do their work professionally and make sure that we have inclusive security.
Let me come to you, Commodore Dapper. I'd like you to speak to, the image from Plateau State yesterday, the scene of the attack right there in Angua and Rukuba, where the governor visited the residents to condole with them and appeal to them. I'm hoping that the video will begin to show on your screen now. We understand that, and we saw that he arrived there in an armored tank, and the residents began to demand that he come down, from the military vehicle to address them, and he eventually came down. From what we're seeing, it looks like the governor may have even been shedding tears just before he addressed them. So I'd like you to speak to it, right from the time he began addressing them from the military vehicle to the time that he came down to address them. What comes to your mind when you see such an image, Comrade Dapper?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. The images are very, very horrible. And first of all, let me extend my commiserations to the good people of Plateau and the Angwa Rukuba people for the losses suffered, for the loss of loved ones. My heart really goes out for them. And it's unfortunate that this should be happening in a country where people live, where people have a government, people have trusted their life in the hands of government to protect them, and the government have let them down. Now, why the issue of Plateau is very, very pertinent is that a pattern has been created in this Plateau conflict. For the past 6 years, since 2020, every Easter week has experienced a violent attack, series of attacks. We had it in 2020, 2021, 2022, in that Holy Week. It was in 2023 that they organized a special treat for the governor to welcome him when he was elected. They shifted that to December 23rd to 25th, when about 17 communities in Plateau were sacked with over 200 deaths. You had the same in 2024, 2025 was the turn of Zike near Jos, then this 2026. And in all this, there has not been a policy shift, any shift in paradigm by the government. They have not come out to do anything different from what they have done before. They have only done what this governor is doing today, just come to the scene, shed some tears, pretend you are sorry, offer condolences, and you go away. The next thing, you organize meetings. The next, now just watch in the weeks to follow. Now you see community meeting, call community meeting, elders, they meet with commissioner of police, meet with the GOC, a government will hold meeting, and they wait for the next set of attacks. This is absolutely unacceptable. It shows a failure in governance. The government has failed. There's no any other way to say that. This government in Plateau has been visited with series of bad governance, and this seems to rank highest in the course of bad governance in Plateau. Otherwise, let's even put the governor to hold him accountable. What is wrong in even most of these things we are talking about can even be assuaged. Who said this governor cannot look for surveillance systems? Who said this governor cannot put a CCTV? Now, the issue we are talking, even after the attack, nobody knows who these people are. Nobody knows where they came from. Nobody knows where they disappeared to. You can't run governance like that. And most of what is required can be outsourced. The problem is that this government don't want to spend money, right from the federal government to the state government. And the federal government is culpable. They follow the body language of the federal government. With all this thing that happened, when the one in early this month, we had this incident in Maiduguri, multiple bomb explosions in Maiduguri. The president was riding horse in faraway London, and when he came back, he said nothing, he had done nothing. The only thing we have heard from the president ever since is yesterday or thereabout during his birthday that he's donating his salary to military people for welfare. What can that do? When we expect serious statements from president, serious actions, he has done nothing. So the governors have followed suit in the part of the president by doing absolutely nothing. And that's the problem we have. The government is not doing anything. Apart from the security agents that are on their own, just managing to contain a very bad situation. We want to hear very good, loud statement from the government. This government had, look at even issue like state police. We have been on this state police issue for over 10 years now. The last government for 8 years talk about state police, and this government say we make sure there are state police. What does it take to amend constitution to have a state police? And the governors are not even saying anything. The governors that are the one concerned most, they have not said anything. I've not seen any one of them make any protest, make any statement. They don't want state police because to put a burden on them. They like the status quo to remain. They get money, they spend the money, and wait for the next of victim. So I hold the governors and the federal government culpable for these acts of negligence and misrule. And I think the time has come for this country. The citizens must rise up. We must find a political system that must take away security and economy from these politicians. They have visited the citizens with unacceptable level of indignity, loss of life, poor economic management. And we cannot leave the management of these two critical sectors in the hands of politicians.
If I may stay with you,
begin to find a system that will take the way from the hands.
If I may stay with you before I go, we go to Zoma. So let me tell you some of the things that I know the president did. I think whilst he was in London, just before he left for London, he had told the service chiefs to relocate. They recorded a bit of success in terms of taking out some terrorists. We've seen those relocations. So I want you to help us understand what is really effective. Two things. First, relocation of service chiefs seem to be just a temporary, stopgap measure. It hasn't really brought much. So do you think it's effective? Because from where we sit, it doesn't look effective, or there's something we're missing. On the other hand, is what people are complaining over. What exactly is the position of government in action, not in words, concerning terrorists? The president stood in front of our National Assembly, the People's House, and literally said, using my own words, enough is enough. You can't continue to kill people. In fact, when he went to Benue State without getting to Yawata, he said the lives of cows cannot be measured with that of human beings. It was quite heartwarming to hear that for the first time from a president. So he went to the National Assembly to say, this has to stop. And then his Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, came out and said, what the president is saying is that if you bear arms and you're not a member of the security agencies, we're going to get you. And it's going to be brutal. So stay clear. But it looks like all of that means nothing. On one hand, we're also hearing some persons in the military, in the hierarchy of the military, saying these bandits, these terrorists, they are maybe our brothers. We need to create a corridor for repentance. So what exactly can we take as the real message from the government as far as the treatment of terrorists is concerned in Nigeria? Let me say, if you can do that in 1 minute, sir.
Okay, thank you. This president has not convinced me he understands the dynamics of what is at play in the security sector. By his action, by his utterances, this president likes to follow the path of least resistance. He says the simple things. He has never said any hard things that can culminate into any significance in handling these security situations. And I'm not convinced this president knows what to do and is willing to do the real things. In a situation like this president came with a clear mandate. In the midst of all this insecurity, the thing that is topmost in his mind is to gratify his proteges and his aides with appointments in the security sector. That is what is uppermost in his mind. And when a man's mind is beclouded with those primordial sentiments, he cannot face the real issues. For instance, when he was elected president, A few weeks before he appointed, the first thing he did, he moved Egbetoku from AIG to DIG. In the next day, he appointed him DIG. Now, even the Egbetoku's time has expired. The next thing that was uppermost in the mind of his president, if he's shopping for a replacement, is to take his ADC. Egbetoku was his chief security officer. The next person capable of taking that position was his ADC. And who knows who is preparing next? Maybe his driver, his cook, or his orderly. A man that does that lacks any moral conscience to handle the problem. He does not have an understanding of what it takes. And I don't think the president is ready. The same thing he's doing in the defense sectors. Please, are you with me?
Go ahead, please.
Okay. The same thing in the defense sector. When he came to power, what was uppermost in his mind was to Yorubanize the security architecture. And what has Yorubanization brought to him? He looked for the youngest Yoruba man to make the chief of staff. The problem with the president has always been the chief of army staff and the inspector general of police, because those are the two people that are concerned in midwifing election for them. So you see, once a president comes to office, the next thing in his mind is not how to secure the country, but how to win the next elections. And what do? They go about shopping for their aides, shopping for their proteges to put in place of in the security architecture. And others are watching them. And those things has completely messed up the security system. The problem we are having in this country today is the fusion of politics in the military. Politics and the military professionalism do not go together. They are like the law and equity. They may flow in the same channel, but they don't mix. So if we must begin to address security in this country, we must find a way to insulate the security architecture from the dizzying influence of politics. This president has made politics, has made the military and the security architecture a part of his gratifying patronage for his proteges. Well. And that has affected the whole things. And when you put your friends and your proteges in security to head the security architecture, you cannot shake the table. You cannot get angry with them. You cannot have serious discussion with them. And those people cannot tell you the truth, what is happening. These are the main issues happening, part of the main issues happening. And let us hold the president accountable. When he came first into the system, he went to ECOWAS. He signed a document at ECOWAS that want to operationalize the ECOWAS standby force to be able to act as a counter-terrorism force. Since after signing that document in Guinea-Bissau in 2023, nothing has been done. Nothing has been said about that document. Nothing has been done. Now, again, this president has opportunity to talk to the U.S. to intervene in this crisis, and all they could do, because of their religious sentiments, they now say they just want a few people to come and do intelligence instead of putting boots on ground. The same thing that happened during Buhari's time, this President Trump, in his first tenure, wanted to put boots on ground, to use the same force he used to dislodge terrorists in Syria and Iraq, to put boots on ground. And everybody, I was in defense headquarters then, we advised, the matter came up, we advised the president that he should allow the foreign forces to come. But a few people, again, because of religious sentiments, said no, America cannot come. And the same thing is playing out now. Meanwhile, they have no solution. This president completely lacks solution. And until people do something serious, this president has no solution for this security country. And I said this on good authority. He has not convinced me he knows what to do and he's willing to do anything. The same thing goes for the governor of Plateau State.
Well, Commodore Dapper, the president uses the appointments of the inspectors general of police and that of the chief of army staff as gratifying tools for electioneering campaigns or to win the next election. We may not, have evidence to totally back that up, even though it may be a possibility, because the new chief of army staff, I believe, is not from the southwest, but from the north central, but the CDS is from the southwest. Whether that has any ethnic coloration for political positioning and favor, well, we really cannot tell. I wonder if Mr. Ozoma has contrary views to what you have said. But in addition to that, Mr. Ozoma, I'd like you to speak to some of the earlier comments of Commodore Dapper to the effect that, indeed, if the Plateau State government wanted to tackle this challenge of insecurity, it can with the deployment of CCTV cameras. If you have additional recommendations to that effect, I'd like you to add to that, especially because the governor had said in the past that about 64 communities have been taken over by bandits in Plateau State. And, many Plateau persons know these communities. In fact, we've heard Plateau citizens say, you know, in the aftermath of attacks in the past, that we know these people. Some of them, you know, are quite forthright by saying that it is the Fulani that are coming to attack them. So if indeed the attackers, the oppressors are known, and communities that have been taken over are known and identifiable, what additional measure can be deployed to deter these attackers? Mr. Ozoma.
Thank you. It goes beyond the CCTV. CCTV can guide you to detect, okay? It doesn't really prevent, it doesn't arrest, it doesn't respond to kill. So it takes human being to man the CCTV surveillance system, the commands and control. And over time, I can tell you, people know, experts conceive or perceived the governor of Plateau State as one who is not willing to spend that money for effective security in terms of surveillance and emergency response. Like I usually advise them to borrow some leave from the Lagos State Security Trust Fund government to be able to have equipment. But again, part of the issues we have in Plateau and elsewhere, most times the security agencies are looking at the states, the directors, the compos and what have you, and the GOs are looking at the body language of their heads, their leaders here in Abuja. Is the body language of the president really to exterminate, to uproot this insecurity to nip it from the bud? Okay, so if the mandate is there and is very clear, we don't need foreign boots like on ground like the Commodore tried to suggest. No, the men of the Nigerian police force, the same military, if you give them the mandate to do this, they will be able to, I can give you 30 days is enough for them to get off out of this mess. But most times when intelligence are sold before these commander-in-chiefs and others, coming from these security experts, they look more at the election implication. If we respond drastic to this, what impact will it have on the next election? Can it give me the next winning votes? You can borrow that leaf from the statements of the president on his minister. He said when he tried to engage the minister of FCT, he's looking at why you do this, but you're being here in Abuja FCT, what impact will it have on him in terms of votes and order? So you see everywhere here now in FCT are now being controlled by the party in government. Does that really give us security? Whereby in the central business district here in Abuja, you can see cow graze across, you can verify that just within here in your, this axis, the force headquarters and critical area, well reserved 3 arm zone. And you wonder, is it really how it's supposed to be? An area that human being, before you try to cross and you get response, who goes there and what have you, but cows can graze easily. And these headers are people who do mapping, do surveillance for the killer headers when they want to invade. So that has always been there. So, but the government, you discover that from covert operations, most of these people that owns these cows are not the header. They are people, heads of ministry, departments, and agencies. So that's why nobody arrested, nobody goes after them. So at the end of the day, you discover that these same security agencies or government who want to react to this insecurity cause and order from the back door are also the ones knowingly and unknowingly engineering the insecurity. The case of Plateau and is very pathetic in the sense that the governor seems helpless, and a lot of people think that he's decamping from the party that gave him the mandate to lead the people of a Plateau. Will go a long way in helping him to solve the security issues.
Mr. Ozoma,
but again, there's also some connection from international politics. If it's much more easier for Russia to invade Ukraine and nothing happens, US can go into any country and others. So it gives these terrorists, these invaders, these marauders, okay, that same mindset that, yes, that they also have a moral obligation to go somewhere in Benue State, Yelwasa, go to Benue State, sack people of their villages and possess their lands, okay? But
Mr. Ozoma,
haven't understood these peculiarities. Yes.
Pardon my interjection, but let me quickly follow up with this one. You say that in one breath that the Plateau State governor is just unwilling, and in another breath you say that is helpless, perhaps following his defection. Which exactly is it? Which exactly should we go with? Is he unwilling, or is he just helpless in the face of political concerns? And if he's unwilling, why?
One, he is helpless because of where he found himself in the party. His hands are tied. There are certain things he cannot say or review. That is number one, because he is not a member of the party. Number two, he is unwilling because the money they tend to reserve money more for the next election than tackling insecurity. He has what it takes to hire experts in terms of advice. Okay, if the government intelligence agencies, the DSS and special units of the military and the police seems to fail, he can electronic surveillance are there, experts who will do covert operations and bring, because certain people, because I've been to a lot of villages in this same place, they know the people. They know the problem. If you give them 24 hours for the locals to officials and point to those who are responsible for that, those dastard acts and all that, they will bring them. But the governor or even the security agencies first wouldn't want to offend the government in power that has appointed them. Okay, even when they know, they try to see a way of managing it and things like that. But why must we continue to be in that order? I've known a couple of maybe experts in terms of surveillance that had approached the same government on maybe some security equipment they can deploy in the state that can give real-time feeding of maybe the movement of these killer headsmen, terrorists, or whatever you call them and everything. But the governor was not bold enough or have the capacity to spend that money to have those gadgets in place. It's not late. Okay, we wouldn't want to hear, because because these guys are watching, they are still within, because the events that happened there is both failure of intelligence on the part of the security agents and also failure of emergency response. Even if you lacked the intelligence, if you did not get the intelligence ab initio that these guys, there will be an attack, the moment you got the information that attack is taking place, because for such to happen, they must have spent over 30 minutes. What's the speed, the rapid nature of the response? Do they have choppers, surveillance system on the part of Air Force to be able to deploy, monitor, and make some arrests or neutralize some of these bandits or killer headsmen? The answer is no, because they know they can, the terrorists, the killer headsmen, and their sponsor can predict the body language or the next movement of the governor. That's why, because even him, he's frightened. That's why he could approach that area on an armored vehicle.
Commodore, let's take it to Commodore. Commodore, let's talk about two things first. The first one I want you to address. There is clear suspicion, perhaps on a lot of people's side, that there could be the complicity of states in all of this. That is why we're not able to deal with the issues the way we should deal with the issues. Do you think so? Because you served in the military for over 30 years. How much of sabotage and complicity is, destroying our ability or limiting our ability, that's the right word, to be able to curb this as quickly or as strongly as we should? And the second question is, how mighty is our military?
Okay, is that for me? Okay, thank you very much. You see, the issues are, let me start with the first one, the government. One, it has to do with quality of people you elect into position. Now, what we see in politics today is state capture. A few people capture the governance of a state, and they put their stooges, put whoever they want there, without minding capacity. And when they enter there, they see only the money, the opportunity, the privilege there. But when they enter there, the tax is enormous for them. Like as is clearly displayed in the case of Plateau, the tax is enormous for him. Even for the president of this country. The president is overwhelmed by the economic and the security problems of this country. He does not seem to have a grasp of it. Even when a man speaks of a problem, the dimension, he speaks of the dimensions, the nature, the root causes and what he intends to do. And when you bring a solution, if it's not working, you're able to go back to the drawing board and come up with a fresh solution. That shows the man have understanding of the problem. Have you had this problem? Have you taken this president one-on-one on the security to him to even discuss the dynamics? Not to talk of the governor of Plateau State and so many other governors like that. So it's not that they are complicit in most of these things. I don't see that they are complicit, but I see a just pure lack of capacity. They don't have what it takes to do the job. They can't deliver on the job. And it is very clear. And that's why we must be very careful people we choose into place of governance. They must be people that demonstrate clear and proven capability to address the issues on ground. The president, this president, I'm saying it clearly, has not shown that capacity. The governor of Plateau State and several other governors have not shown that capacity. Now let us come to the issue of the military. Military might is not a once and for all thing. Because, like, if you take, for instance, the case of Iran, where we are talking about Israel, you see they keep building on the capacity. Iran started with a short-range missile that can cover 300 miles. They go to 600, they go to 800, they go to 1,000. Today, they can do 2,000 above and above. That is what we call might. But when you are able to get a missile, you can do 10 miles and you remain there. It might be sufficient today, but tomorrow it can no longer be sufficient. And that is what happened to Nigerian military. In the 70s and early 80s, Nigerian military was one of the most potent because then the strategy was that the government wanted to build a military that can be able to withstand South Africa. That was the time of era of independence and nationalism movement across the continent. And Nigeria was in the forefront. So the Nigerian military then was being equipped so that when it comes, push comes to shove, they should be able to withstand the might of South Africa. And that was why I was talking about the last time I was here. We had some of the best equipment in the armed forces in the world. But those things have gone down. Those are the equipment that enable us to make the impact we made in Monrovia, in Liberia. But when have those things been upgraded? When have those things been replaced? And that has been the problem we have. So you cannot compare the might where we are today to where we were in the early 80s. It is not the same. We are not where we used to be. And it's comfortable for the politicians to come out and brag, we are the best military in the world, we have done things in the UN, we have shown our capacity in the world. We are talking of what's their present capacity. What's their present capacity? The present capacity does not demonstrate that because the government is not spending enough on the military. What it takes to build capacity to be able to defend this country is really enormous. And the government has not made that commitment. I have come here severally. I have talked about the issues of funding. I have compared what we are spending to what other even lesser countries are spending in Africa. And we are nowhere near them. Algeria is doing 8% of GDP on defense. We are doing less than 1%. You can't be talking of might under that circumstance. The budget you see every year when they say it's for defense, let me tell you, there are 7 institutions under defense that share from that budget. You have the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, you have Nigerian Defense Academy, you have the Armed Forces Resettlement Center, Air Force Institute, you have Defense Intelligence Agency. All these people, their budget are engraved inside what you see as defense budget. So when you say defense budget, what comes to the defense itself, the military, the Navy, Army, and Police, is less than 50% of that budget you see. And out of that, recurrent and overhead takes another 80%. So at the end of the day, you have less than 5% of those budgets on armament. And that's why I've always come here to say the president needs to make a categorical statement, a ground-moving statement on issue of capability. What is he spending? What is he going to spend to equip on equipment alone for the armed forces? He has shied away from that. He has refused to make that statement. He doesn't want to spend that money. Rather, he's interested in building roads. Who will use that road if everybody dies by the time he finishes building that road? So the president must be held to make a statement. He has declared a state of emergency. Let him make a statement. I will continue to say that he must announce his budget for arms procurement. And it must be in billions of dollars. If you don't do those things, you can't begin to talk of might. What people are just doing now, they just manage the what we have so that to keep the system going. But this president has not shown capacity. He has not shown willingness to address the issues. And he must be held accountable. That's my position.
Let me follow up with you, Commodore Dapa. If I'm not mistaken, you sort of absolved the governors of complicity earlier on when you began answering the last question. But I'd like for you to relate it to the availability of the security vote in the governor's budget, an unaudited, an undetermined sum. According to reports, some run into billions of naira annually, some run into, you know, maybe R1 billion monthly, depending on the strength, the financial capacity of the state. Would you say, especially from your experience as a former naval officer, that these funds have been judiciously utilized, especially in states where, you know, security, you know, is a huge challenge in the North Central, where we're beginning to see, you know, constant attacks, in the Northeast, in the Northwest? Have you seen the judicious expenditure of these funds for security? And I ask this because time and again, we see interactions with, you know, the governor of a state, with, you know, the commissioner of police, with even, you know, the military, relevant military officials who visit them time and again. But is there relevant, you know, assistance of these security formations in their state, in their domains, from the security votes that is available to them?
Okay, thank you. When I mean that they are not complicit, it's not that they are not culpable. They are not accountable. I mean to say that it's not like they are part of the process that engineered the conflict. But what I'm saying is that they are completely culpable. They must be held responsible for what is done and what is not done right in the state. Now, the governors are happy with the status quo. They like a situation where the federal government will be held. Anytime you ask them, they say security is the responsibility of federal government. And meanwhile, every year they vote billions for security votes. And what they do, anytime they just buy 1 or 2 hillboxes for the security agencies, bring the cameras and show them. At the end of the month, they dispense a few millions to the security health for fuel and for those things, and they think they are doing security. Have you had any state governor come and want to secure the state? And these are the equipment profile that I want to obtain in this year's budget. Have you had any one of them say that? Even this Plateau, he had never said that, and they will never say that. That's why I'm saying none of them want to make a push for police, state police, because they don't want to show their responsibilities. Because when they state police now, they have to equip them, they have to pay them, they have to accommodate them. All these things will eat deep into their security vote, which they just put there for their own selfish use. All right, they don't want that. Yeah, that's why you see them, they are silent. Yeah. If the governor push for state police, within a week or two, they will get it.
Come on, let's take it to Ms. Ozoma. Ms. Ozoma, let's bring you in and talk. Let's stay with this money matter. Now, there are several parts to it. The budget of the security, defense and security, if you will, this year is about, I think, 5.4 trillion naira. That's about, depending on what exchange rate you're using, around $3.8, $3.9 billion, which is small compared to others. But my question is, do you think they are being judiciously used? Because there are also allegations of corruption among, you know, top military hierarchy in terms of generals. They say if you go to Abuja, if you know the number of houses owned by generals and top military hierarchy retired, it will beat your imagination. How did they make this money? So do you think it's being judiciously used? And what can be sufficient?
To start with, it's not judiciously used. And unfortunate for us, we don't have those who carry independent and covert audit of the utilization of these funds. Away from it not being enough, the one that is already budgeted, mapped out, you really need to investigate how it's being utilized. Okay? Every generals or heads of each of the security units or defense comes, the next thing that comes to their mind is to do one form of renovation or the other, reshape the office, change tiles, interiors, and what have you. Then when you begin to scrutinize this money being spent on these things as a way away from the core mandate in terms of equipment, it becomes a problem. I am aware most times you expect that some of the international agency might reach out in terms of defense budget or procurement or what they can do, and the next thing you hear from, even when one will release information that, no, they are doing something much more, expecting something better than one is being given at. They will give information of certain things that are being procured from maybe Turkey, elsewhere. Are they really procuring the right equipment? And if they are procuring the right military arsenal, who are those who are manning it? Because the problem we are having most times when the defense makes procurement, even when the prices are overbloated, they tend to seem individuals, not those who are capable, but those maybe either based on their religious inclination or loyalty to them as an individual, to be in charge of this equipment, to be in charge of this gadget. Then when the opportunity provides for it to be utilized effectively, these guys that man them, the man behind the machine fails. Okay? Then oftentimes when these equipment are procured, we make the mistake of showing to the same terrorists that we've procured this against you. They are before the media. We forgot that these same terrorists and their sponsors are within the circle. They monitor and they now know how best to do counter defense against the same defense agency. Then away from that, who are those we recruit in the system? Who are those we put in the military in strategic position? Most times you see that, you notice that is a section of a people. Okay, so when information comes like that, or when an emergency comes, they are not apt, they are not professional in making sure that the mandate is for national security. It's not about religion, it's not about your geopolitical zone, it's not about who puts you there. It's not about the body language of the president or the governor who wants to win. You have no business with the next election. Your mandate is security, whether the governor gives you an assent or the president. Your oath is to protect life and property, even if it's costing you your own job. If the president has said no, do not respond in this order, and you know that security-wise this is the right thing you are supposed to do. If it costs you your appointment or your job, so be it. All right.
Ongoing conversation. Apparently, I think the consensus here is that we just want our people safe and alive. I must thank you both gentlemen for doing justice to this conversation. Kingsley Uzoma, security consultant. Commodore Promise Dapa is a former naval officer. Gentlemen, thank you. We appreciate your contribution.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for having me.
We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll switch gears to politics. Stay with us.
Welcome back, and so let's talk politics now. It was a weekend of conventions, elective conventions for both the ruling party and the supposedly main opposition, if you like, People's Democratic Party. But let's look at the APC, and so much has been said about this convention held by the ruling All Progressives Congress. But let's hear now from a member of the ruling party as far as the success or otherwise of the APC convention is concerned. And joining us now is Mr. Ken Okolugbo, who is a former consultant, communications and strategy office of the Senate President. He's also, of course, a member of the All Progressives Congress. Mr. Okolugbo, good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Thank you for having me.
Indeed. So let's start with organization. And as far as that is concerned, so much has been said. While some have adjudged the convention or the best in recent times as far as convention is concerned, in terms of organization, in terms of, you know, if you like, aesthetics, especially within the Eagle Square. But others have looked at it a bit closely and said, there's still much that can be desired. And I'd like to list a number of those items. We saw the Edo State delegates and their state chairman complaining of, you know, where they were put, which was not quite satisfactory. We saw a key member, if you like, of the APC who defected last year and spoke about the president in glowing terms, a former senator of the Federal Republic, Senator Ben Bruce, who was sandwiched between relatively unknown delegates in a bus. We've seen also how people were tear-gassed, even gentlemen of the press who had supposedly been accredited prior to that time, but couldn't secure access to the venue of the Congress for coverage. So it appears as if our organization was not the best in terms of those items. How do you plead for your party?
You know, I like to be very frank. The convention was a huge success in terms of attendance, in terms of the number of people who showed so much enthusiasm. I had only just gotten back from Gombe because I was a member of the appeal screening committee for the Northeast Zonal Convention. And so I couldn't settle down to know what was up with almost all the work that had been done in terms of the venue. But I had friends who were in the venue committee and I had friends who were in the security committee, but I think they really need to up their game. That is the absolute truth. For example, in Delta, we also had our complaints. We were seated behind the stage and we couldn't see what was happening. And I actually felt a lot for the delegates from my state. And in terms of security, incidentally, my iPhone Pro Max was stolen. And a couple of things like that do happen, you know. And you don't take that away from the shine anyway, because those organizational hazards are things that will be nipped in the bud during the presidential convention to actually elect the presidential candidate. It's a lesson, and it's also something I know the national chairman is going to look into. I believe a lot of people who served in those committees should not serve in those committees again. I must be very honest about that, because they could have made some better arrangements, but that did not take away the shine from the events.
All right, let's get to the elective positions. We understand that the team was retained, you know, by consensus. So how satisfactory was that as far as, you know, other contenders is concerned?
Well, if you look at it in all honesty, this was a team that actually won the elections. If you remember, the elections were closely fought, and the president won by barely less than 2 million votes. And for a team that, you know, was in charge, and some of them came in within the period of time the president had become, had been sworn into office, you don't expect them to be changing the national chairman who was barely 1 year old in office, or the national secretary who was barely 1 year old in office. They needed this continuity, because in an election year, it's very unwise to change your team. And the National Working Committee of the party has discharged themselves quite well. And so if you had even asked my opinion, remember I was in this studio and I even told you what I suggested for my ward in Delta, that everybody should return, apart from the positions that, you know, people had done 2 tenures and it had to be women. You look at party positions and you build them in terms of consensus. Nobody wants bickerings. Nobody wants to leave a convention where you have had elections and people will leave with a lot of bad blood. And so I think it was a very wise decision returning the team. And they will have to hit the ground running, because it is obvious that there is really no time. The timetable says April 23rd, yes, to May 23rd is for the primaries, which is the most important aspect of the National Working Committee. Remember what the president said, that the pride of the party could also hurt the party. One of the things that can be the biggest problem for the APC will be internal democracy. In terms of primaries, people are already saying they're anointed. They don't want to go to the grassroots to ask for the votes of the people. People are already saying that this person has endorsed me. I think it is time for us in the party to tell ourselves the truth. The wards and the leaders of each district, be it senatorial, be it House of Rep constituency, or House of Assembly constituency, even gubernatorial, should be the ones that should take a decision of who does really represent the party, and not the ones by endorsement.
Yeah, But let's talk about, I don't know whether you could call it a blind side or your party may be pretending about it. I know you don't know how to pretend, so that's why I like to talk with you. And one of the things that has to happen is its ability to manage a possible implosion. People have predicted an implosion, and you can understand why they are predicting that implosion, because this is perhaps the biggest surge in movement, especially with governors moving with all their structures from the PDP and all of that, and upsetting the sequence of structure that has already been established with people who had aspiration to maybe run for office, whether it's at the national level or at the state level. So in your counsel to the APC, what will it be? Because now the most glamorous thing to do now in the APC is consensus, and it looks like everybody's fine. That is clear pretense. You and I know a lot of people are pretending that they are fine with this whole consensus issue. So what should your party be gearing up for?
Well, you know, I was already going there before you said that. It's one of the biggest, it's going to be one of the biggest challenges. If you look at it, we're talking about 31 governors. It's not, I don't think even in PDP, where there was any time we had up to 31 governors when I was in the PDP. And so the party is very huge now, and people talk about implosion. I don't think it will implode, but it will also be a lesson, what happened in PDP, for us to learn in the APC. I always say it. Because when you do not allow internal democracy thrive, there are some people that will never want to take it, no matter how much they love President Tinubu, who we are all supporting. They will, first of all, think of their own personal survival, think of their own personal ticket. And so they will want to take a chance to go to another party to go and express their interest or express their aspiration in trying to get into office. And so that issue of consensus is already in the Electoral Act. It's either by consensus or is either by election. Most people prefer consensus, no doubt about it. But that is after the aspirants have bought their forms. But when you now go into consensus and you do not reach an agreement and you impose someone, then it becomes a very big problem. Because people will also like to test their popularity on the field. It's easy to say you are popular. When you get to the grassroots, you can tell for yourself if you are popular or not. Especially for those who don't even live amongst their people. They just come and say, I've been endorsed. Somebody has told me from on top to go and, you know, represent my people. This is what also brings about mediocrity. That's why you have a lot of legislators who have not done very well, who are still looking for how they can get their second-term ticket, or some who can have their third-term ticket. You can't, you know, you can't hoodwink the people at this particular point in time of social media. People are seeing things for themselves. And so I know very well that this chairman is someone who is very meticulous. I've sat with him before, I've met with him before, and he's someone who does not joke about, you know, issues like this. I know he's going to go back to the drawing board. He's going to put his national working team together. I have that belief and I have that faith in him that he will take decisions that will not lead to an implosion of this party.
So you're quite right that it's contained, the guiding rule is contained in the Electoral Act. And I'd like to quote it. It's here in Section 87. A political party that adopts a consensus candidate shall secure the written consent of all cleared aspirants for the position, indicating their voluntary withdrawal from the race and their endorsement of the consensus candidate. So we saw Dagogo Fubara, who came out of many others, because he told us that there are 60 other candidates who also paid that sum and they were excluded from the process. And so at that convention, there were nearly 20, I believe, elective positions, but we didn't see any contender, we didn't see any ballot cast, and we didn't see, well, perhaps it was close to the public, any commitment by other aspirants to say that indeed we comply with this process, we're okay with this process. So tell us, Mr. Kolugbo, what is the APC managing behind the scenes if, according to Mr. Fubara, there are 60 other people who paid for that position that he contended for and they were excluded from the process? So what's going on behind the scenes?
Where, did you read the Electoral Act or you read my party constitution? I
read the Electoral Act 2026.
Yes, the Electoral Act doesn't cover my party constitution. What we're talking about is offices for members of the working committee of the party. We're not talking about candidates, Bukola. So that is not binding. Well, if I must address the issue of Fubara...
Are you sure that this is not binding, Mr. Kolubo?
Well, it's not binding, please. It's not. It's not. That is for issues of
we'll have that INEX to clarify, but go ahead.
No, I'm just telling you it's not binding on. Every party has their own constitution. What is binding on them is when it comes to how to present candidates of a party. That is what you just read. Now, on the issue of Fubara, I don't really know him, but there was also that issue in the Northeast where I served as a member of the appeal screening panel. We did not even have any complaint, funny enough, prior to when we had the Northeast Congress. I have my report with me as a member of that panel. But what I'm saying is that, for example, in the South, Victor Gyadom had been returned by the 6 governors. And so Fubara should have consulted very well, because there's no way Fubara will want to become the South vice chairman of the party without the endorsement of the governors. Let's call a spade a spade. If all the 6 governors have returned Victor Gyadom, how do you expect to now buy a form and win the election? You cannot win that election. You must try to sell yourself. Yes, we say consensus, but consensus is such that you must have been accepted. Yes, it's a pity that people bought forms, paid for forms and said they were not given the forms, no doubt about that. But before you go to also pay for a form, it's not the same like aspiration for candidate. That's why I'm trying to, clarify, differentiate it, Bukola. The one for candidates, people can go and buy. You can go and test your popularity. It's very difficult for you to just impose people when it comes to candidates for an election, because we're looking for the most popular candidate. But when you're talking about party position, it's always with interest. So he didn't consult properly before he went to go and buy his form, because I know very well that the man who was returned had been endorsed by the 6 governors and the delegates. So how do you win such a contest?
So are you saying that there were no aspirants for the other elective positions, and they're all okay with the election of the retention of the new team?
A decision had been taken that they were going to return the new team. If you were going to be able to change anybody there, you should have been able to warm your hearts to those who took those decisions. And if you couldn't warm your heart to those who took the decisions, why just try to put up a fight? You don't own the party. The party is a collective effort of people who are members of the party. And that decision is a collective decision.
Mr. Kolubo, let's talk about the election proper. Apparently, the president is going to get a ticket. There's been endorsement that started almost a year ago with the summit that was held, as regional endorsements, all forms of endorsement. So it's just endorsement. But let's talk about what you see that the president may be up against in terms of a challenge. Let's begin with the North, which is a natural challenge, in my view, for him. He did quite well. He tried his best in the last election to take a few places in the North to form his numbers and spread across the country. But especially when it comes to national security or insecurity in this sense, this president hasn't done as much as we expect him to do. Has he made effort? Yes. But the same thing that bedeviled Muhammadu Buhari is still bedeviling him. The quality and standard of human lives, or the value for human life, is still at very low. We're still having record number. In fact, it is on record, I stand to be corrected, that under this leadership, the highest mass abduction occurred, because Chibok was the highest, 200 and something. I think Papri was the next. Is it Papri now? I think in Niger State. About over 300 persons. In fact, there were another set of abductions. So if you look at the numbers, when it comes to the ease of mass abduction, it hasn't really improved. So what exactly is going to be the president's speech? He may have 31 governors, but he has 200 million people to deal with.
One of the biggest challenges of this government has been security. And anybody that tells you that it's not a challenge is lying. And the president himself has accepted that in terms of security, it has been a Herculean task for him. And the fact remains, look at Jos, for example, the 40 lives that were lost and having to impose curfew, 48 hours. I can't remember when last there was an imposition of curfew where you don't come out of your house for 2 days. And so it's a very serious situation. And you see, let me also tell you that one of the reasons this game has, the insecurity, the tempo has come up, is also because it's an election year. Election years are always like that. Remember, like you said, Jonathan had his fair share, a dose of what we're seeing now. Buhari also had his fair share. But I think the security architecture we have would need to up their game. The president has given them the marching order to go to Borno, and we're seeing that instead of Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa, that we have these issues, and it has not only read its head in the north central. We're having a Plateau and Benue being the hottest spots after Niger has had its fair share of challenges. I think what the president has suggested is what we should do. We should quickly go into this issue of state policing. The National Assembly should quickly allow the state policing, arm the forest guards. I was speaking with someone who told me that the civil defense has only 55,000 rifles. They're looking for 50,000 rifles. And I was quite alarmed that if the civil defense is looking for 50,000 rifles, how do they even arm those who are supposed to take care of very critical areas of security in this country? And so the truth must be said. We must buy arms, we must buy ammunitions, we must up our defense budget, but more especially we must arm our forest guards, like the presidents have said, through the Office of the National Security Advisor. We shouldn't play lip service to it. Every security is local. You must be able to give intelligence. It's failure of intelligence that actually led to the killing in Jos. And so by the time these things are done, they will realize that these issues are not only, if you also look at it, the opposition has not even also told us what they have, what their game plan is to stop the insecurity we have in Nigeria. People thought that when Buhari came, they said Buhari was the one that was suggested to negotiate on behalf of Boko Haram, and that once Buhari became the president, there will be an end to these killings. But we saw that there was no end to these killings. And yet, you know how ruthless Buhari was as a military head of state, and you couldn't also take it away from him that he had a lot of experience in terms of security. So you can also, accept that fact that it is a challenge, it's a huge challenge, but has to be nipped in the bud. And the only way you can nip it in the bud is to allow for state police and forest guards to be armed to the teeth, not even with pump action rifles, but with AK-47, so that they can actually fight these terrorists, these bandits, these kidnappers that have been making the country very unsafe.
Yeah, Mr.
Koloba, affecting our gross domestic product.
So, Mr. Koloba, apparently the president doesn't have his pitch kit completely full for him to be able to pitch his re-election as far as the North is concerned. So while we stay on that, let's go to the South.
But he has given that charge. He gave that charge, and you saw he was very clear.
At the end of the day, it's not about giving charges, Mr. Koloba. It's his presidency. Whether they carry out that charge and they are able to do it satisfactorily. Satisfactorily doesn't mean how the president is satisfied. Is the man who lives in the people who live in that area to say it was like this, it is like this now, so we can say the difference whether it's better or worse or remains the same. It is their verdict. So that's why I'm asking about the measures the president is. What is he going to use as his pitch kit to be able to pitch as far as his re-election, especially the North, is concerned, which is where Pundit may be suggesting he's going to have a lot of run in terms of his contention. But in answering that, in addition to what you want to say, let's talk about the Southeast, for instance, that have complained consistently about marginalization. We've seen some representation of people who are not typical politicians, businessmen, joining the city boys and all of that. I think Ogun State has about 4 ministers. If we have Wale Dubosu Tijani, Oduwole, Dr. Oduwole, I think Salako, Minister Salako, that should be about 4. I think the whole of the Southeast, I stand to be correct, I don't think they have more than 6 or so, as at the last count. So you see, in terms of representation, at that level, they may not have as much representation as possible. So, and I know it has friends in the Southeast, but for the Southeasterner, who is traditionally, from the last election, doesn't want to see the president return, what is he going to use as a pitch this time? You think he's done enough to assuage them, to consider him for some numbers?
Well, I don't think it's only what he has done. We already have APC governors. We have the governor of Imo. We have the governor of Ebonyi. We have the governor of Enugu. And you can accept the fact that the governor of Enugu has been adjudged to be one of the best governors that we have had in recent times because of the work that he's doing. Now, the removal of fuel subsidy gave more money to the governors. And so that is one huge plus you're going to give him. Yes, we're suffering it in terms of the Iran-American war right now because of the fact that there is no subsidy. We can feel the heat and we can feel the bites in our pockets buying fuel and all we are experiencing in terms of the crisis. But if you look at the bigger gain in terms of the macroeconomic indices it has given to the Southeast, they has also been able to develop the Southeast Development Commission. And so if that commission is funded, a whole lot is going to be done in that area. And I think the commission is led by a young man who has a vision to actually do a lot in terms of programs. And yes, it's going to be a challenge in the Southeast. Southeast has always not voted, or they have always shown resistance. So there is no doubt to say that Southeast is also going to prove a challenge. But it will not be much of a challenge in the terms of what measures you are going to use if you look at what the governors have also done, who are the APC governors. And don't forget too that Charles Soludo has also confirmed that he has done a lot for his people because of the policies of President Tinubu, and that he's going to be supporting President Tinubu. I'm not saying once governors support you, you have won an election. No, that's not the case. It's like I said in one of your stations that Peter Obi was totally obliterated his opponents in Anambra because that is where he comes from. So there are these areas that you come from, and you know that fact that you are from there is always that sentiment, ethnic sentiment, when it comes to that voting. So there is no doubt that when you're on the ballot, you definitely, not only do well, but win your elections extremely from those areas. But in terms of his performance last time, which was very poor in the Southeast, I don't think he's going to perform like that again, in my own analysis.
Well, just before the ship sails fully on the subject of insecurity, if you're saying that previous administrations had this same challenge and it is now becoming the norm ahead of every electioneering year, is it now for us to accept it as a normal pattern and absolve this administration of blame where this is concerned? And I say this on the back of the fact that the current president, as national leader of the All Progressives Congress, called for the resignation of former President Goodluck Jonathan while he was president in 2014 ahead of the electioneering year, saying that the administration lacked the capacity to tackle the challenge of insecurity. And we're seeing a gross challenge in the same breath. We're seeing that the administration itself is unable to tackle the challenge of insecurity this time around. So should your principal resign following this lack of capacity?
Not my principal, the president, rather. I don't think the president should resign. At this material point in time, it is for the security agencies to up their game. And they don't have a choice. It's the truth about it. And you can see a three-pronged approach. When they went into Maiduguri, by the time the president got to the UK, you saw the gains. Over 80 terrorists were killed. We saw their dead bodies. At least for the first time, they displayed those dead bodies. And I was happy that they were able to display those dead bodies to show evidence of what they can do when they are charged up. And so the security team, the National Security Advisor, the Chief of Defense Staff, thank God we have a Minister of Defense who has been a Chief of Defense Staff, who just have to up their game because it should not be the norm. It's unacceptable. You can't just say because we already know that in an election year we're going to be always having insecurity so that they can blame it on the government and one of the failures and one of the reasons why they want to vote out that government out of then we can actually accept it to be a norm. It should never be a norm. They would have to up their game. That's much I would charge, because it is quite obvious that a whole lot of killings have happened this year, which is unacceptable. And that is why the game has to be upped. But the gains that were made in Maiduguri, when the president told them to go to Maiduguri, should be used as a yardstick for other areas. That's what I believe.
Well, the leaders of the security agents work for this government. They work for Mr. President, and so they are inextricably linked. You cannot separate one from the other. But we'll have to accept your explanation on this one. Mr. Ken Okolugo is a former consultant, communications and strategy in the office of the Senate President and member All Progressives Congress. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And so this is where we drop the anchor on the show for today. Of course, there's a lot more to come as Sunrise Daily is up next on Channels Television, so stay with us. We'll be back again tomorrow. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Jeffrey Ozama. Bye-bye.